Joining us on your devices. We're glad you'll be with us as we explore God's Word together on this Mother's Day morning. Today is Mother's Day, a day to celebrate moms, but just as we begin this morning, I want to acknowledge that Mother's Day isn't necessarily a happy celebrative day completely for everyone. For some of us, our moms aren't with us anymore, and when we think about mom, we miss her, and there's some sadness. For others, mom is still with us, but her physical health or maybe her mental faculties aren't what they once were, and she's declining, and that brings some sadness, makes life more difficult. For some of you, your mom is fine, but you keep thinking maybe she's losing her mind. That's probably your fault. So that's a little different. For others, maybe we didn't have a great relationship with mom. Some people, mom was difficult. Mom was self-centered and not real warm and nurturing. And for others, maybe you're the mom and you had a kid who was very rebellious and unresponsive and made life difficult for you. So Mother's Day can be different on all different kinds of levels. And for some, they wish they were a mom, but that's never worked out. And there's some sadness there too. For anyone who's feeling any of those things, feeling some sadness or pain on this Mother's Day, our hearts go out to you, and we pray that God will help you, will give you strength and comfort and heal any hurts that you may carry from a relationship with your mom. For most of us, there's a lot of positive memories. There's a lot of good things that happened and a lot of things we can be thankful for. I wondered some audience participation, if you want to share one thing that you're thankful for when you think about your mom. Anybody? Yes, back there. All unconditional love. And there were certainly times we didn't deserve it. That's great. Somebody else?
Yeah, that she didn't kill me.
Yeah, I've heard mom say, I brought you into this world and I can take you out. So just glad she never did that. Yes. Anyone else?
Just for all the love that she gave.
All the love. Okay, yeah. Wisdom, advice, good input for conundrums. Excellent. Anybody else? Did your mom ever do anything fun with you? Moms aren't fun. Yeah?
My mom was the one who forced me on a roller coaster, and then I fell in love with roller coasters, but she was right beside me.
There you go. At least one fun memory from a mom. James.
My mother did not hinder my sense of adventure.
She didn't hinder your sense of adventure. Yeah, excellent. Remember playing ping pong with my mom and baseball and all different kinds of things. Mom, yeah.
I remember playing ping pong with your mom.
Hey, you did too, eh? That's great. Ping pong with mom. Yes.
It's hard to name just one thing, because she does a lot of things, but she always goes out of her way to help us.
Goes out of her way to help when you need it. That's fantastic. Great. Moms are worth celebrating. So many good memories for most of us with our moms. And this morning we're going to look at a story from Exodus, the first couple chapters of Exodus, about a baby who had two moms. A baby who had two moms in the first couple books of Exodus. So the first mom for this baby obviously was his birth mom, the one who carried him for 9 months and then brought him into this world, was the first baby, the first mother for this baby. She, while expecting her child, was in a low-income, lower-class family. In fact, they were living in a foreign country, and they were under the brutal oppression of a foreign king who really didn't like them or their people, and not only oppressed them, but basically made them slaves. You may notice the story being in the first 2 chapters of Exodus, that it's a story of Moses and his mom and dad. Moses and his parents were in Egypt, And Pharaoh and his people became concerned that the Israelites were increasing in number. They were becoming greater and stronger, and they were afraid that if an enemy would attack them, that the Israelites might decide, hey, we're going to join with the enemy armies and fight against Egypt and get our freedom, and we're going to leave. Because Egypt had become dependent on the Israelites for free labor, forced labor. They had enslaved them, put taskmasters, slave masters over the Israelite people in Egypt. Because he was so paranoid about what the Israelite people might do, Pharaoh made a proclamation. He said that all Israelite boys who are born should be killed. And he gave that instruction to the midwives. And the midwives feared God. They believed in the God of the Hebrews, and they were not going to take the lives of these babies. And so they made up these excuses. Oh, the Hebrew women are so quick giving birth. Before we get there, they have the babies. They've already popped out. We just wipe them off when they come out. And so Pharaoh went and gave a different edict. He said, anyone who sees an Israelite baby is to take the baby and throw it in the Nile River so they drown. Pretty radical. You're going to exterminate all the male babies of any Israelite person. That's pretty extreme, isn't it? Talk about limiting population growth. Then in Exodus chapter 2, verse 1, we meet the baby's parents, Moses' parents. It says, a man of the house of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. In Exodus 6:20, we get their names. Amram was the father, and Jochebed was the mother. And as you know, Moses was the baby. When I think of what it takes to be a great mom, one of the things that really helps is right here in that first phraseology, the first verse. It says, a man of the house of Levi married a Levite woman. I highly recommend this. I believe this is God's plan for all moms. Not everything works out according to plan, but marry the man first. Okay? Marry the man, then get pregnant, then have the baby. Too many people in our day are doing it out of order. And it's like, I've had people over the years come to me and say, yeah, we've been living together for 5 years and we're 6 months pregnant, and can you do a wedding for us before the baby comes? Yes, I'd love to do that, right? I'd love for you to be married when you have the baby. But God's plan is somewhat different from that. Or even, our baby's 3 years old and we have a 1-year-old, now we're going to have our third baby, so we thought maybe now we should get married. Okay, again, great. I'm glad you want to get married. But God's plan is, well, most of us know where babies come from, and it's not the bathwater. So if you wait for that until after you're married, the chances of you having things out of order go way down, right? If you don't have sex until your wedding night, you're not going to get pregnant before you're married. Guys and girls, this is God's plan. This is God's order of operations. Find somebody, fall in love, get married, then have sexual encounters leading to babies and motherhood and fatherhood. It's real simple. It's not all that complicated. God's given us a plan, and if we follow his plan, that's when things work out the best. Research shows that the families that do the best raising their kids are the ones where mom and dad work together, where they get married and they stay married, and they work as a team trying to pass on their values and their morals and their faith to their children. And that in families where it's broken or where only one parent is trying to pass on morals and values and the other one's all caught up in something else in life, it's much more difficult to raise kids who end up making a difference in the world for God, who grow up loving God and reaching out with his love to other people and making a difference in the world. Teamwork. Dad, sometimes we feel like it's mom's job to raise the kids. And that's so not God's pattern or plan. He wants us to work together. He wants dads to be involved in the lives of their kids, to build real relationships with their kids, to be hands-on. Remember a dad coming to me when I was pastoring in Fort Erie. Sorry, got that wrong. A mom coming to me when I pastored in Fort Erie. She said, could you talk to my husband? It's like, sure, I love talking to your husband. What would you like me to talk with him about? He thinks it's my job to put the kids to bed every night, including saying a prayer with them, reading a Bible story with them. They never see his faith. It's always me who's praying with them and reading the Bible with them. Could you talk to him about that? He's not here, but I'm going to talk to the rest of you about that. Get involved. Let them see that it's not just mom who has faith. It's not just mom who reads the Bible, who prays, that you embrace this too. And you're more likely to have kids that come out on the other end loving God and following him and serving him and full of faith and making a difference in the world for the kingdom of God and his glory. And it will be for their own good as well. Teamwork, parents working together to pass on faith and values and morals and what's important in life. Chapter 2, verse 2, B. When she saw that he was a fine child, stop there for a moment. When she saw that he was a fine child, how many moms, when they hold that baby for the first time, look at him and say, ew. I'm not sure I should admit this, but there are more dads who look at him and say, well, can we trade this one? So, yeah, most moms, they think, especially when they're babies, when they're newborns, like, what a fine child, what a beautiful child, what a wonderful, lovely child. How come he has no hair? How come he has too much hair? I don't know, there's all kinds of things we think, right? And yet most moms see the potential. Great moms see the potential in their child. They look at that kid and they think, what a great kid. That kid has so much in there that I want to help bring out as they're growing up. God has put great potential in each one of us. Moses, this baby in this story, obviously had great potential. God was going to use Moses to lead a nation of his people in following him. Now, God might not choose that for your child or for you, but God has put great potential in you, and there are things he wants to accomplish through your child or through you personally. And it's our job to try and bring that out of our children, to help guide them and point them in directions where they see some of what God has in store and what God would love for them to be and do in the world. Here's a question for moms and dads. When you look at your child, if they're a little older now, do you still see great potential in them? Do you still see the best in your child, or have their failures and flaws kind of colored the glasses a little bit? Like, oh, you're never going to amount to anything. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I wonder how many of you heard one or the other of your parents at some point saying, you're never going to amount to anything. I've heard too many stories of parents saying things like that to their kids. We get to the point where we no longer see the potential, where we're no longer encouraging and nurturing and trying to help them move in a direction where they can embrace and live out the potential God's placed in them. When she saw he was a fine child, she saw the potential God had placed in him. I love Jeremiah 1, verse 5, where God says to Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. God has great plans for every person he puts on this planet. He wants every one of us, all of our children, to make a difference, to make an impact in the world. One question is, what potential do we see in our kids? What are we looking for? What are our dreams? What would make your child a great child? Or you or me a great person? A lot of people are raising their kids according to the values of the culture. You know, you want to push your kids towards finding a good paying job, having a great career, finding a nice husband or wife, and raising 1.6, is it, children now? And find a nice home if you can afford it in Alberta or Saskatchewan. It's getting harder, isn't it? But what are the values? What are the goals? What are we pointing our kids towards in life? I'm going to do a little layover here, overlay. Roseville Church has embraced 5 purposes, which I think would be great for all of us to embrace for our own lives and for our kids. The first one is love God, right? The greatest commandment is to love God. Do we hold that up for ourselves and for our kids as this is the greatest thing you could do with your life? Or are there 17 other things and then love God down here somewhere? And the second one, what was the second commandment? Anyone remember? Love others. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is the second commandment. It's like the first one. It flows from the first one. How do we love God? By loving the people he puts around us. The people inside God's family, that's fellowship. The people outside God's family, outreach, evangelism, sharing his love and truth with people around us, whether they know God or not. Loving God and loving people. Those are the 2 highest values we could give to our kids. And I think too often we go by what the culture says and we just kind of skip those or put them way down the list. And our kids come out thinking what's most important to us is that they get a good education, that they get a good job, that they have positions of power or prominence, or that they're important somehow, instead of loving God and loving people. And the other 2 purposes we embrace that flow from that are discipleship and ministry. Learning to love God, to follow God, to live by his plans and purposes. That's discipleship. And ministry is using the gifts and abilities and the knowledge we have in serving others and serving God. If there is some wonderful person out there who could bring me a drink of water, I don't know why I'm so dry today. Apologize for that. There's one mom in the New Testament I want us to consider for a moment. She had 2 sons, James and John. And in Matthew 20:20, she comes to Jesus to talk to Jesus. Comes to Jesus to talk to Jesus. And what do you think, if you could go to Jesus and ask for something for your kids, what would you ask? Do you pray for your kids? Oh, what do you pray? What are you asking Jesus for your kids, for your grandkids, for your nephews and nieces? Mom comes to Jesus and she says, you may know this, hey, can one of my children sit on your right hand and the other on your left hand, basically to rule and reign with you when you come into your kingdom? That's what she wants for her kids. You know what? You got to commend her on one level because she's aiming high, right? Aim high. I want my kids to rule and reign with you, Jesus. That's really good. The other disciples hear about it and they get all mad. Like, what? What about me, right? That's what they're thinking. I wanted to sit on his right hand, not his left hand. I want to rule with Jesus. I want to be in charge. And Jesus sits them down and has a little discussion, flowing from that question of, hey, can my kids sit at your right and left hand? And listen to what he says. You know, the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you, the mom wanted her kids to be great, to have these positions of prominence and power, influence and authority. Do you want your kids to be great? Do you want to be great? What does Jesus say makes something great? Whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. Oh. Do we teach our kids that being a servant is better than a position of prominence and power? I don't think there's many people teaching that. Even in Christian homes, I don't think there's many people teaching that. James and John's mom hadn't gotten the message. To become great, you must be a servant. Whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man, Jesus himself did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life for many. Mom said, make my children great. Jesus said, You want to be great? Learn how to serve. Learn how to sacrifice. Learn how to put other people's needs ahead of your own. That's what makes you great. How many of us have taken our kids to help at a soup kitchen or an Operation Christmas Child warehouse or some other place where they can learn to serve? Hey, some of us are going to Ontario Christian Gleaners. Sign up, join in, bring your kid if they're old enough to go, need to at least be in high school. Demonstrate this. You want to be great? Serve. Exodus 2:2, continuing. Sorry. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. Hid him for 3 months. Why did she hide him for 3 months? Because Pharaoh said, anyone sees a Hebrew boy baby, take that baby and throw them in the river to drown. So she wanted to protect her child. Great moms protect their children. Now, we don't have Pharaoh trying to kill our children, do we? But there are an awful lot of forces of evil and darkness out there that are wanting to destroy faith and destroy values and destroy character and to tear our kids down and our families apart. And we need to fortify them against that as much as we can. When you think about protecting your kids, there's different ages and stages, and it's different for different ones, right? Saw an episode of Last Man Standing this week, and they were baby-proofing the home, and then no one could get the doors and the drawers open after they baby-proofed the home. There's that stage, right? And then they get a little older, and it's like, okay, what's the right bedtime, and how much sugar should we let them have, and should we limit how much screen time, how much TV they can watch? And then they get a little older, and it's like, well, should we let them go on social media? Should we let them have a cell phone? Should we, right? There's so many more complex questions and issues in our day than there used to be. And it's funny how nations are dialing it back on things like how much kids should be involved with social media and when they should have cell phones available. And some nations are banning cell phones to even be brought to school because they're so detrimental to kids' health. And some parents, I got a 6-year-old, you got to have a cell phone and social media access. It's like, ooh, set your kid up for failure. If you need answers to any of these questions, ask me. I have a one-size-fits-all answer for every. There's no one-size-fits-all. It's different from one family to another. It's different from one context to another. It's different from one child to another. What was right for Ben wasn't the same answer for Hope or for Gabe. They were all different. And as parents, we need to be in tune with God's Spirit, listening to His voice, His leadership in our lives. And the answer doesn't have to be, it's equal for all of you. No. It needs to be designed specifically to who you are. Like Hope, who didn't go to bed before 1 o'clock until she was 6 months old. Like she's just always been different and difficult. And wonderful. Parenting it's not a cookie cutter thing. It's good to get some wisdom from people who have some gray hair, who've been through some of the battles. And right, Megan? Moms can give some good advice sometimes, and so can other people's moms. Great moms also, let's read the verse. Verse 3. When she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. She placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. Try and picture yourself taking your 3-month-old, putting it in a basket, and leaving it for someone else. Right? How do you do that? But she knew she had no choice. She could not provide everything her child needed. And there are some moms who need to give their child up for adoption. And it's the best option, and it's a good, viable, godly choice for some people at some times. And that was the choice Jochebed, Moses' mom, had to make here. I can no longer give my child what it needs. So she gave it up for adoption. Did you ever look at this as that kind of story? Sometimes it's the right thing to do. Most of us don't have to do that, but all of us have to trust God enough to let go, to let our children go. And it starts when you let someone else hold them for the first time. When you leave them in the church nursery and they cry. When you let them go to Sunday school or sleep over somewhere. Kindergarten? Overnight camp? Remember when Ben was newborn, the lady said, one day he's going to cross the street on his own. And Deb's like, oh, no. We let go one step at a time, a little bit. Eventually they end up out in British Columbia doing a co-op or something. We need to raise our kids, giving them increasing, I'm jumping ahead. Okay, next verse. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Great moms give their children responsibilities. Mom couldn't be there, but she said, okay, Miriam, I want you to stand by the river, keep an eye on that basket. It wasn't like some movies portray it, drifting down the middle of the river. She put it in the reeds along the side of the river, and Miriam stood over it watching. And along came Pharaoh's daughter and finds the basket. Right? But she had given responsibility to Miriam. And good moms and dads give their kids responsibility. The older they get, the more responsibility they get. They don't wait until they're 12 to start teaching them to have responsibility, to follow through on their responsibility. Remember one disappointing moment in our parenting process. Why is it Hope again? Hope's standing at a chair by the kitchen sink, and the two of us are doing the dishes, and there's water everywhere. And Mom's like, okay, that's enough. Like, get her down from there. Don't let her help. I'm teaching her so that when she's a teenager, she still wants to help. Yes, she's a very good helper when she wants to be. Teach kids when they're young to pick up their own toys, to pitch in and help in different things. And you know what? One psychologist I heard from, Christian psychologist, said, don't give them freedom beyond what they've proven they can handle in terms of responsibility. Because freedom is a responsibility too, right? To manage themselves. And as they show themselves more able to handle responsibilities and manage themselves well, we give them more freedom. Good parents, great moms give their kids freedom, but only in conjunction with proof of responsibility. So Pharaoh's daughter comes along, she sees the basket in the reeds and sends her slave girl to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying. This is the only time in the Bible that talks about a baby crying. And she felt sorry for him. Great moms have hearts that cry with their kids, that have care and concern and compassion, that embrace the pain of their child and other people's kids too often. Caring hearts, a sign of a great mom. Sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Well, she had a dilemma. I have this baby I found, and I'm thinking I'll keep it. And now I have this nudge to keep it and make it my own. What was she supposed to do by law? Law made by her own dad. Take the baby and throw it in the river. Let it drown. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like the apostles in Acts, right? Do we obey you or God? We got to obey God. And so she decides to keep the baby, but she can't meet its needs. She hasn't given birth, so she has no milk, and she needs a wet nurse. She needs somebody else to help care for this child that she's adopting. So she says, yes, go, take this baby, and the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. Government subsidy for raising your own kids. Isn't that great? Canada should think about that. Yeah, but Isn't it great how God worked that out? That she, even though she had to give up her child, God gave her child back to her. For a time, she got to nurture him and nourish him and teach him and train him about the things of God. How long did it last? We don't know for sure. But it says when he got older, she took him back. So it's likely a couple of years, maybe even 3 or 4 years. Weaning didn't always happen early in those days. But she had a chance to pour into him, to nurture him, to nourish him. Sometimes we get to directly impact our kids. But other times we have to trust them to somebody else's care, that letting go thing. And it's great to enlist the help of others who are responsible and reliable, who will be good role models, who will live out faith. And Pharaoh's daughter here enlisted the help of the birth mom. Did she suspect that that was the birth mom? I'm thinking maybe, yeah. But she enlisted the help of someone else. It's hard to raise a kid alone. If you're in a situation where you don't have support, where you're the only one, get as much help as you can. Enlist as many others to pour into your kids. Sunday school and youth group and kids night out and adventure week and our UB youth camps and youth retreats and access as many things, mission trips. Where do kids pick up faith? It's not just from their parents, it's from seeing other adults as well who have a real relationship with Jesus and are living it out day by day. And some of those times when they get to spend all day with them, like at retreats and camps and mission trips, are more impactful for most kids. So access as many of those kind of things as you can. Great moms enlist the help of others because they know they can't do it alone. And then one last point, not directly from a verse there, but the overall picture. God had a plan and purpose for this baby's life. Before he was born, like we mentioned before with Jeremiah. And God has a plan and purpose for your life and for my life and for our kids' lives. He needs us to trust him. Some of you have trouble sending your kids to a public school because you know that some of their values and morals in that system, that it's godless. What was Jochebed doing when she took Moses back to Pharaoh's daughter? Talk about a godless environment. There was going to be no encouragement in faith to follow the true God. They had all their other gods. They had a great system of education, but none of it was rooted in faith in our God, the one true God. God is able to bring your kids through all the negative influences and the noise out there to a place of full faith and following after him. We need to trust him. Make wise choices each step along the way for what's best for your kid, but trust that God can bring them through even a pagan influenced society or one that's embedded in false religion. God can still bring them through. Trust God with our kids. Do all we can to pour into them faith and values and character and morals, and pray your hearts out. Let's pray. Father, thank you for moms who've made a difference in our lives. And as Norma said earlier, for other people who've been moms to us and to our kids too, who've poured into their lives. Bless each mom. Bless each one who's got painful memories and relationships with kids or parents today too. Lord, bring comfort, bring hope, bring healing and restoration where possible. Lord, help us as parents to hold up what's most important for our kids. Not that other things don't matter, but loving you and loving people around us. Lord, may our kids always know that that's what's most important to us, so that they have a better chance of catching the vision, your vision for their life.